Ambika Berry's vision of supporting the arts is parallel to her centre's commitment to support community development and encourage sustainable living. A beginning in this attempt is Disappearing Dialogues, an initiative by artist Nobina Gupta. Through a series of interactions with the local community, environment and traditions, the project aims to preserve traditional knowledge, cultural practices and heritage, and in the process, empower the youth and women in particular. Supported by Art Ichol and curated by Nobina Gupta in October 2016.
Disappearing Dialogue is a project that I have been working for past 4-5 years. A lot of monuments here which are lying, like their ruins, their archaeological sites, there are many historical places which are lying in pieces and there's hardly anyone looking after them. And if we don't take care of the environment, we don't take care of the heritage and the history around us, there will be a lot of things that will be lost forever. So it's time that we take care and preserve whatever is still left with us.
The materials I'm interested in, mud brick, they're the oldest building materials. People are moving towards concrete and you can see it in the cities certainly, but it's in the villages now as well. So where people used to use mud, they now use typically cement, or the materials that they have traditionally used here, they're substituting for cement. And if you were to plot some of these villages, you'd see, every week one of the mud buildings goes and then you see a concrete one.
Sania Maihar Gharana, or the musical school which is so famous over the world of Hindustani classical music. If Maihar is known to the world, it is for this musical school of Baba Alauddin Khan. Right now, though the musical school is very much alive in the context of Hindustani classical music, but it's not the way it used to be in the past. So this is the Disappearing Dialogue, something that was once very vibrant over here and now thinning out.
The whole notion of disappearing dialogues is very closely related to the way that we have both been working, exploring, investigating some local villages after receiving information that there were small pockets of traditional weaving practices going on.
Singling them out and really honouring them, recognising them for the beauty that they are before they disappear.
Today, no matter where you go in India, either the cities or the rural towns, respect for our history and where we've come and how we've come here and what needs to be restored in terms of how it could positively impact our life even today is long gone forgotten. A life and a way of life that once existed is probably not there today, it's gone. There's this entire legacy of Baba Alauddin Khan and he's created stalwarts like Ravi Shankar, Ustad Ali Akbar Khan. That way of teaching, the whole Gurukul Parampara, that is disappearing.
If we look at furniture making and craftsmanship, that's the disappearing dialogue that's evident today in India. The tradition, the time and craft that's put into building beautiful woodworking. An old tradition within India, it's falling apart. There's not much of it nowadays because the demand for quality craft woodworking projects is highly diminished over the years.
Making a note of what trees are growing in the region, they were far fewer than what I had expected. Not just looking at trees and identifying them, but also what is the scope, like if I could use any or all of those trees as dyeing possibilities to dye cloth. I saw so many trees cut down. They're building a 4-lane national highway. So it's a little bit sad, like obviously you need development to take place, but at the cost of what?
The colour palettes of historical Indian art. And I was really curious to how some of these colours were achieved and how they were mixed before the introduction of synthetic paints and dyes. There has been a shift towards synthetic dyes in this region for convenience and for cost. And even when we've tried to go and find people we heard about who were doing natural dyeing, we arrived there at the village and they were no longer doing it. One of my goals for this trip was to investigate more about the hand painting and dyeing using natural dyes.
Working on this area of sustainability of a culture, only to realize the relationship between the habitual practices with art, picking up areas where those dialogues, those discourses are disappearing, finding out areas where we feel that there's a merge, like we are into a present where in the present, past is existing. So it's a presence of past that is bothering us all the time, and it makes us more responsible to some way to carry it further towards the future.
I always find these city people basically have no idea what living in a village is all about. On the other way round, the villagers, they have hardly any idea what it means to live in the city. Hardly any dialogue between villages and cities.
Whenever I ask farmers whether they remember a time where chemical farming did not happen, and they would always point to 30 years ago, where their grandfathers used to farm and their fathers also used to help the grandfathers, where not a single chemical would be used and the produce would be much better than what it is today. So that's what's disappearing. That's what's disappeared mostly. Natural methodologies have been replaced by chemicals, and there are pockets of farmers that are trying out organic and succeeding. The attempt is to somehow get that dialogue back, the original methodology of farming back.
Experience here at Ichol has been outstanding.
I was basically just blown away by the place.
The model that Ichol has set up, where they're so close to local villages, they're you know a kind of a world-class kind of centre in their own, but their perimeters and you know some of their staff are really of the area. The aesthetics are of the area, so it's such a great melting pot, you know.
So this project, Disappearing Dialogues, becomes a very, very valuable resource for the present and future generations. And what will emerge will be something which will really be there to sensitize the people, to valorize the art of the region, and for people to take ownership of these cultural ideas and practice, which really becomes the soul of the society.